Kim Jong-un won with 99.9% of the vote. You're wrong. Can you give me a source on that?
Constantly strengthening the revolutionary armed forces of Korea and thus laying strong political, ideological, military and economic foundations, enabling the Korean Revolution to advance victoriously in any adversity. Recalling the days when he was always together with President Kim Il-sung among the men and officers of the People's Army, Kim Jong-il said that had they neglected the work of strengthening the People's Army...
Oh, yes, here we go. The very reliable source, NDT. It's already a contradictory article. Kim Jong-un wins 99.93% of the votes in North Korea. That's curious because that's not even how democracy works in DPRK. Then the funny part is where it says the election held on March 15th to choose members of the 15th Supreme People's Assembly saw candidates backed by the ruling establishment win every single seat. So, who's being elected here? Is it Kim Jong-un? Or is it delegates to the Supreme People's Assembly, which Kim Jong-un is constitutionally not allowed to be a member of? We're also going to get down to what the source of this is too, which will be even funnier. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has secured yet another near total electoral victory. He had nothing to do with the Supreme People's Assembly, with the ruling Workers' Party of Korea and its ally group winning 99.93% of the vote in the country's latest parliamentary elections. No. Because again, Kim Jong-un nor WPK participates in elections like that. In every single socialist society, USSR, DPRK, whatever, none of the parties run like that. That's not how it works, because competitive parliamentary bourgeois democracy has been abolished. And instead, people vote directly for their own candidates. 99% of the people. 99% of the people that were voted for. Give you a better source. You gave me, look at the source you gave me. Yonhap News Agency. Comrade, please. You can't even do your own goddamn media literacy. What is me linking you a better source gonna do? You're just gonna whine about it being a DPRK source or something like that. But you have no problem linking me South Korea fucking news as proof of Kim Jong-un getting 99% of a vote. Well, then I just have to take you at your word. I'm not even asking you to take me at my word. I'm asking you to fucking exercise some media literacy. Literally, you literally believe this? I'm asking you, do you believe this? You believe that this is telling you the truth, do you? You think that South Korea, a country that is controlled and occupied by the US empire, is telling you the truth about a country that they see as their largest threat, do you? You seem to be taking them at their word. I'm not asking you to take me at my word. I'm asking you to question a little bit of what you're fucking reading in the news. I would definitely believe South Korea over North Korea. Why? Because you think capitalist media is reliable? That's interesting, chatter. It's interesting that you find corporate capitalist media to be fucking reliable source of information. I will take note of that. Anyway, that's not how the DPRK government works. I have videos that you can watch to learn why that's not the case, but I'm not going to derail the whole fucking chat for you. I think my chatters can help with that, maybe. Nah, Reuters. What? Reuters? What are you saying? What are you saying? Reuters? Reuters what? That's why you believe so. I asked you, why do you believe South Korea more than North Korea? And you said Reuters. Oh boy. I'd love to better understand how their elections work. It's quite. There is a really good piece if I could remember where I can get that piece from Anna Louise Strong, which is probably in here. Let me see if I can find it. But I mean, it works almost the exact same way as it works in Cuba, where it depends on what body you're talking about. You ask why I believe capitalist media, and Reuters is the best news source I can find. Okay. Anyway. Here's a little vote in chat. I'm just curious to see where my chatters are at this point. Where do you find media more reliable? Wait, so you understand Israel is committing a genocide, but you stand with the country that has been occupied by the US that committed a genocide against... I don't do the automod font. That's literally built into Twitch. You realize, right? That's what automodding is. If you're just here to troll me, you know what? If you're just here to... I don't mind having an actual conversation with you, but it's feeling like you're just here to troll me. So, no, sorry, it wasn't automodded. Okay. You can have a 10-minute timeout because you're an annoying troll. You can't even stay on subject. You're now whining about an automod that happened. Sit down for 10 minutes. Now, I know that I thought that it was here. Well, here's some... Well, no, this is People's Assembly laws. Well, here's laws. Like you can literally... the funny thing is, here, you can go and look at what DPRK laws actually are. By the way. Including looking at what their constitution says. Which gives you some clue as to how their elections work. But like any socialist society, there isn't these competing parties where one party wins the election, right? You just have to choose one party or the other, and they just win the election, and then that party essentially has direct hold of the state organs, more or less, to essentially do whatever it wants. Right? That's not democracy. That's like Lenin says, it's the right to choose one slave owning representative over the other for a set term. That's all that is. We communists seek to do away with that. That's called bourgeois parliamentarism, okay? And we seek to do away with that and allow people to have a more direct say. Because parliament represents property interests. The property interests of the capitalists. Which is why what we want to do is bring into power the Soviets. The workers' councils. people in their actual workplace. The lower seats of society is what we want to make the seats of democracy, rather than these like chambers of the bourgeoisie. And it's through the struggle, first of all, of building revolution itself, that the working party wins support of the people. And through that struggle to overthrow oppressors, it becomes the constitutional leader of the society. There can be no greater fucking, like, the proof of winning that revolution. There can be no greater fucking show of support of the masses, because no revolution can win without the support of the masses. And then it is made the constitutional ideological leader of the society. This is, again, how every Marxist-Leninist government gets set up, right? Now, as being the constitutional leader of society, all that means is there is no competing elections whereby the working class party can be overthrown. It is constitutionally the ideological leader because there is no competing working class ideology. Our social science is scientific. It is based on scientifically applying that which has been proven to work in practice, and that which we create as new concepts also is proven in practice. And that which doesn't work, we revise until it is the correct line, until it is the correct way forward. And the only way we can do that is by ensuring that, first of all, you have a revolutionary program guided by the working class, right? And that's why you have the one party in control. That doesn't mean that there's only one party. There's other parties too, but they're not there trying to compete for power, because no party has direct hold of any state organs. Unlike in capitalist society, even the working class party, that leading party, it doesn't take direct hold of state organs. Instead, it has a lot of members of its party, and through that course of revolution, it has gained a certain amount of trust among the people. And so those party members go among, they live among the people. They live in different sectors of society. They work in different parts of the society. And they try to get elected to various state organs. And more of them serving on various state organs discuss the things that need to be discussed, and then everybody on that various organ gets one vote on matters, and the majority vote is accepted by all. That's called democratic centralism. And every body in the DPRK, from the local People's Assembly, the Workplace People's Assembly, all the way up to the Supreme People's Assembly, and even the military highest bodies, operate on that same principle of democratic centralism. This means that, depending on what the policy is, sometimes the party policy has been the most popular one, and sometimes it hasn't. And it doesn't matter, like, how many, like, the party members that are in society. It's like, it's not where you have so many seats, and so this party has more of a say or something else. Every person that is in that office, in that room, is able to have a say, is able to give input. It's open debate. And then, like I said before, centralism in action, where after they have debated and everybody has voted and they have reached a majority vote, then that is the thing that is accepted by all, and they work towards that. Now, that means that, like, in towns, you'll have people that will run just in your community. Some from the WPK, some can be independent, and it's up to the people themselves, like, through multiple rounds of voting, to decide who they want to put up, who they want to be their representative. Unlike here, where, like, people come almost seemingly from out of nowhere half the time, especially when you're talking about, like, presidential candidates. See, there is a bunch of works in here. It's just hard to find I think this one here from other authors is mostly like, these are all published in DPRK. I was just looking to see if I could find that Anna Louise Strong piece. I thought that was in here somewhere. There's so much stuff. Books in Korean. Foreign authored. Oh, this must be it right here. There's a video what you were talking about, but of Cuba. What's this one? Yeah. Yeah. I'm familiar with this video. Absolutely. If you want to know how democracy works in DPRK, yeah, essentially this right here. Literally. Like, they have different parties, but their government structure is like nearly identical as far as the democratic structure, how the grassroots interacts with it. Is this it? Yeah, this is the one I was thinking about. Yeah, this is pretty good. There's some good parts in this. I would highly recommend people read this piece. There's one really good part in it where she was asking about democracy there. And someone gave a really good response. Yeah, highly recommend this one. We're actually going to bookmark this. We'll read this on stream sometime soon. And yeah, this video on Cuban democracy. There is a chart as well that kind of like, I'm just seeing if I can find it here. Hold on. I got it in my files, I think. Give me one sec, chat. Bear with me while I search for what I think. I think I have kind of like a diagram here somewhere. Yeah, here. Here. There you go. Here's a little diagram right here. So look, you got United States of America. Compare that with DPRK's, just the way the government's structured, okay? Check this out. Now, DPRK, Kim Jong-un is the head of state, but he has the exact same power as he had before. But check this out. United States of America, head of state, President Donald J. Trump. Executive head, President Donald J. Trump. Head of the military, Donald J. Trump. Head of the party, President Donald J. Trump. Legislative head, vice president of the state at the time, and then by presidential appointment, of course. Highest legislative power, the veto power, President Donald J. Trump. Judicial head, Chief Justice, by presidential appointment. Head of foreign policy, President Donald J. Trump. Vice foreign head, appointed by Donald J. Trump. Head of domestic lands, appointed by Donald J. Trump. Head of education, appointed by Donald J. Trump. Head of healthcare, appointed by Donald Trump. And then you look over here at the way DPRK is structured. Again, now this position is technically, functionally abolished, although they constitutionally did make Kim Jong-un the head of the state to symbolize their unity behind him. So in more of a symbolic way than a real way that he has veto power or anything like that. So it's not technically vacant anymore, but functionally still is. The executive head is Prime Minister of the Cabinet, Kim Jae-ryong. The head of the military, this is actually a mistake, Marshal of the Republic Kim Jong-un, by SPA presidential appointment. Now, actually, this is by the SPA itself, not the SPA Presidium. This is a mistake that is in here for some reason. He's actually appointed by the entire body of the SPA as head of the military. Head of the party, because the party is independent of the state, as I mentioned to you before. He is actually elected by just party members as that role. Because you can be head of the party and absolutely be part of no other state organ. Legislative head. It's presidential of the Supreme People's Assembly, Ko Rung-hae, who again is appointed by the Supreme People's Assembly. And I want to point out that the Supreme People's this is functionally how it works. Many people have observed this over the years. The only reason you don't believe this is because you're cooked on Western democratic orientalist bullshit. Anyway, to continue, the legislative head, which is, the core of the legislative body in a sense, he is like a chairman. He doesn't actually have any special powers over anyone else in the Supreme People's Assembly. He is just by title the legislative head. But like I said, because they have democratic centralism in the Supreme People's Assembly, you have 688 delegates right now in this latest election. It increases every year because, unlike in the USA, democracy isn't dependent on this constituency that just is reshaped through gerrymandering, but instead constituencies are based on workplaces. As workplaces and old people's homes and stuff like that increase, so do the amount of people in the delegate, so do the amount of candidates that get voted in the Supreme People's Assembly. You actually vote in DPRK at your workplace, and voting takes multiple rounds. So again, you first of all have a round where you're nominating people in your neighborhood, whether they're WPK candidates or not. And then there's a comparative election between those two candidates. And then the last election that you see, the one that ends up being most famous, is a yes or no vote, a confirmation vote, which is just like this person has survived multiple rounds of vote. You have one last vote that's either do you really want this person to be your delegate in the Supreme People's Assembly, or do you want to go back to a nomination round? If it goes back to a nomination round, that can make the Supreme People's Assembly take longer to organize, which is why that happens sometimes in DPRK. This is the shit. You're not gonna get this from South Korean fucking newspapers because South Korea is occupied by the U.S. military. Right, Moomies? And then, again, that's why when you see highest legislative power here, it's non-existent. It's a single vote system. Like I just explained to you, every single person in every single state body has one vote. And the majority vote has to be accepted by all. I'm going to give you a London quote that actually explains kind of the way this is set up in a more succinct way, because I know I'm all over the place right now. The judicial, now all of these people here are appointed by the Supreme People's Assembly, which means 688 delegates in this most recent round appointed these people through voting for them. Rather than, again, if we go over to here, rather than the president himself appointing them all. These people are all appointed by 688 delegates of the Supreme People's Assembly who consist of workers, farmers, and intellectuals who all live within their communities, are nominated and chosen by their constituencies. In fact, the person who was the legislative head here, the president of the Supreme People's Assembly before him, was a street sweeper lady who had been elected for fucking 25 years straight to the Supreme People's Assembly because everyone loved her so much and she was like such a staunch revolutionary lady. So she kept getting, she worked in the Pyongyang district, driving a little street sweeper. And she was elected like 25 years worth of times to the Supreme People's Assembly. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So 5 times in a row she was elected to the Supreme People's Assembly as the chairwoman. And then all of these people are elected by those Supreme People's Assembly delegates. 688 of them last time. The judicial head, the head of foreign policy, the vice foreign head, the head of domestic lands, the head of education, and the head of healthcare. The sources for these is Wikipedia, the President of the United States on this side, the CIA Government Library, Publications World Leaders North Korea, and sources, and from Nanira, which is the DPRK government source. Wait, Larry, doesn't allow people to redeem polls? Oh, we can still ask for polls if you want. I just didn't want to like charge it, and then if like we were like, yeah, maybe not the best idea for a poll, it's like then it doesn't have, it's just less complicated that way. Yeah, I'll share this infographic in the Discord. If you're not in the Discord, why don't you join the Discord and learn something with us in a more closely knit collective environment? !Discord, and you can get yourself a link to it. You'll have to look for the section though that brings you to the Juche gang, which you can get in the registry of arrivals or the registry of passport, or something like that. You go down to the bottom and you click the little DPRK flag, and you'll see my post in there. I just posted it. Now I actually am gonna share with you as well this quote from Foundations of Leninism. Let's see if I can just bring it up real quick on here. This would be the best way to do it. If I can get to my documents. Yep, looking good. Okay, leaders. Yeah, so here, there's a quote by, this is from, so this is kind of a complicated quote in a sense. It's Stalin and Lenin mashed together, okay? They're basically the same person. Okay, so serious question, and I'm avoiding previous questions, we can address them. But from what I'm seeing, the DPRK is suffering massively from sanctions. I mean, it certainly is doing much better than it ever has before. What are the cause of the sanctions? Why don't you tell me? What are the cause of the sanctions? What do you think the cause of the sanctions are, Chatter? Why does the USA have the right to sanction other countries illegally? The sanctions aren't even legal according to UN fucking laws, because the DPRK isn't at war with anyone except the fact that South Korea refuses to sign an armistice. What are you know what the causes of the sanctions are? What do you mean? It doesn't seem like you do. What are the causes of the sanctions? The DPRK does accept the fucking sanctions, and they develop their economy anyway, without becoming slaves to the empire. Is that what do you mean? Explain what you're even talking about. How would they acquiesce with fucking sanctions? Explain that to me, please, like Chatter. Make it make sense. You're saying you know what the cause of the sanctions are, but you're telling them to acquiesce with the sanctions. There's a contradiction in what you're saying there. You can't acquiesce something that has been forced on them, and they have. No, the sanctions came before the nuclear weapons. I think you need to watch the video we just did. Cyber activity is again caused by the sanctions. They engage in that cyber activity because of the sanctions. Jesus Christ, the sanctions were there before they even had any kind of fucking cyber activity division of any kind. The sanctions were put in place right along with the fall of the USSR, years and years and years before they had any kind of nuclear program. In fact, when they were part of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, they had sanctions on them. Jesus, you literally are not making sense, chatter. This is why I'm saying I don't think you understand what the sanctions are. They're illegal sanctions. The US doesn't just get to decide to put sanctions on somebody because it doesn't like their government, because they do cyber attack or whatever. How do you propose they do that? No, answer my question. Why are you yelling at me to answer your question like I am somehow at your service? Have you paid me any money? Do I owe you something? I'm actually going to continue with what I was doing because I don't see a sub badge on you. I don't owe you shit, chatter. I'm going to continue on with the quote that I was going to read along with the topic I was talking about, which is talking about the way that democracy works for the chatters who were curious. I was talking about the way democracy works in the DPRK. And therefore, all right, disengaged. All right, goodbye. Get the fuck out of here. You are an annoying little boy or kid or girl or NB, and I can't stand you anymore. Yeah. I can't stand you.
See ya.
Get the hell out of here. Jesus Christ. Imagine being such a self-centered chauvinist that you cannot actually just listen to the discussion that's going on without trying to deflect me to some other kind of topic. Like what was that deflection? That's ridiculous. Like I'm talking about how democracy works in there. I'm talking about how their democracy serves the people, and the chatter goes, "Okay, so they're under sanctions. Should they just accept the sanctions?" It's like, well, they kind of have accepted the sanctions, and they continue building their own society, don't they? Maddie, thank you. I appreciate that. Sometimes I feel like it takes a long time for me to get to that point of being that annoyed with somebody. But when you put an exclamation mark and say, answer my question, when I'm trying to figure out what your knowledge base is or trying to figure out what your framing even is, then I feel like you're just trying to troll me or something, you know? So for those who were curious, I feel like this is a much more succinct way to describe what I was trying to talk about with the separation of the party and the state organs in a socialist society. So this is from Foundations of Leninism. This is going to be a mix of Stalin and Lenin, Stalin quoting Lenin, okay? So listen to this. The party possesses all the necessary qualifications for this. That is, to be the ruling ruling party of the society constitutionally, as I explained. So the party possesses all the necessary qualifications for this because, in the first place, it is the rallying center of the finest elements of the working class. That's us. That's you chatters. All you comrades working in those anti-imperialist organizations, all those Marxist-Leninists, those anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist organizations, that's who he's talking about here. You're those finest elements of the working class, seeking to raise all of those working class comrades around you up, right? To help them fight against transphobia, sexism, racism, all of these other constant war, etc. All of these things that help to protect capitalism, as well as the fight against those class relations itself, to help them connect all those dots. That makes us the finest elements of the working class. That's you, chatters. Pat yourself on the back from that. If you're here listening to this, that tells me you fit that definition. So, In the first place, it is the rallying center of the finest elements of the working class, that's yous, who have direct connections with non-party organizations of the proletariat, because you participate, right, in the anti-war movements. You participate in the Mi'kmaq friendship centers, or whatever black church you might participate in, or whatever other colonized community you might participate in, wherever you are, right? Or even in the poor other organizations that you work in, trying to distribute food to people in need. Yeah. Charity organizations. All of these different things constitute different working class organizations. Remember how I'm telling you communists all the time that we should be in all of these spaces doing whatever work we can, forming broad coalitions. Yeah. See ya. That's why, right? That's exactly why we should be doing that. Because it's up to us, as finest elements of the working class, to go into those non-party organizations, to work within them, and draw people closer to the party. That's our whole mission, isn't it? Right? Why do we go to the No Kings protests as organized communists? To try and draw people closer to the party. Why does PSL participate in elections, right? To draw people closer to the party. That's what our mission is, right? Even after socialism is established, that's what the job of those cadres still is. It still continues on a voluntary way, just the changes now with the establishment of the party's power, the working class has the upper hand, and it goes much faster. So to continue, who have direct connections with non-party organizations of the proletariat, and very frequently lead them. Because secondly, the party is the rallying center of the finest members of the working class, is the best school for training leaders of the working class, capable of directing every form of organization of their class. Because thirdly, the party is the best school for training leaders of the working class, is by reason of its experience and prestige. Two key words there. It's experience and prestige, right? Notice it's not saying it has this by force. It has to earn this position. That's the only way you get experience and prestige, right? And then through that, it is the only organization capable of centralizing the leadership of the struggle of the proletariat, thus transforming each and every non-party organization of the working class into an auxiliary body and a transmission belt, linking the party with the class. See? So you see how like this link is totally different than this top-down linking with the party you get from the DNC, where you see all of these candidates, even the insurgent ones, right, are all sort of like kind of coming at it from a completely different way. Whereas communists are going connected to their party and struggling in that class to get people closer to following the party line. And that is why we say that the party is the highest form of class organization of the proletariat. And here comes the important part. This does not mean, of course, that non-party organizations, trade unions, cooperatives, etc., should be officially subordinated to the party leadership. It only means that the members of the party who belong to these organizations and are doubtlessly influential in them should do all they can to persuade these non-party organizations to draw nearer to the party of the proletariat in their work and voluntarily accept its political leadership. That is why Lenin says that the party is the highest form of proletarian class association, whose political leadership must extend to every other form of organization of the proletariat, which again, it accomplishes through that persuasion, through its members going out and being amongst the people, because we're all members of the people. That's why it's a different kind of party altogether. And that's how democracy and DPRK works, chat. And I mean, democracy everywhere in socialist societies. Check out the graphic. I put this in our Discord. And also, like I say, that Cuba video, that Cuba YouTube video that somebody just linked, that describes how democracy in Cuba works, that's a good one to read, because that does talk about that a lot. And then the Anna Louise Strong one as well. I would look at that also. And then, like, I would ask you that one of the main things too, I say, is like there's a material way to measure it too, and ask yourself: is a government?
It's all for one motherfucker and one motherfucker for all motherfuckers everywhere. You know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying? Ask yourself: is a government that gives their people, right? Oh, good, I found it right here. Is a government that gives their people free education, free housing, free healthcare? Like, is this a government that, like, really hates its people? You know what I mean? Like, is this really or is it reflective of a government that is maybe working to fulfill actual things that its people want? Like, I tend to think that, like, the reason why capitalist countries, even those that profess to be welfare state capitalist countries, don't have as robust a social welfare as North Korea does, as DPRK does. Which, you know, there's something there to think about, I think.